Hey guys, welcome back to Socket Cluster and Vue.js tutorial series. So in this video, we're going to explore in depth the vue-router, and we're also going to be pulling data from an API, displaying that data, and showing you how to do pagination and searching and all the fun stuff. Okay, so once again, just to recap, we're going to be pulling data from an online game called EVE Online, because the data is very complex and it makes it nice and easy to show, well, how easily you can develop complex applications in Vue.js and Socket Cluster. So I did quite a bit of work before this video, and I did some testing as well. Let me show you what my results are, and then we'll go into how it was done. Okay, so once again, we are loading in our app, okay, and we have the client-side authentication, okay. We have our dashboard, and now we have two new tabs. So instead of making this a settings tab, I made it a drop down. And real quick in Bootstrap, let's just go over how I did that. Just the drop down and then two links here, as you can see, with these two routes. And the router is set up here as a sub routes with these two files. See, auth true, and actually, you know what? Might as well, even though it does propagate down. I like to do this. Anyway, okay, but by the way, you don't have to do that. It does propagate off the sub route here, but this just reminds me. Anyway, okay, so let's look at these two routes real quick. So once again, we're using our folder structure as we go. We put it in the settings folder here under pages, this inventory groups, and we build a component just like normal. Build another component just like normal. Okay. We didn't change much else. We included those files down here. Okay, now let's go show you some of the pagination real quick. So come into here. Okay, you'll see that we can search on this. Let's say titanium. You'll see it does search. Should go. Say Echo Light. See, nice and search. We also have pagination down here, so we can just scroll over everything as we need. Obviously, you know, in a production app, you might want to do some scroll handling and whatnot, so it doesn't do that weirdo flicker. But you know, I'll leave that up to you. Okay, and you put more links on here as pages and this sort of stuff. So how is this all done? Okay, well, I think I want to show you real quick how to get the data using Node, and then we'll go over how the pagination, the searching, and all that sort of stuff is done. Okay. So the very first thing is getting the data. So I went up and I made some classes. Crest is the service we're using for EVE Online. So let's do EVE Online Crest. I believe this is the. Did I already? Maybe EVE. We'll just go to it directly. It's easier that way. And you can go to their main page here and get a quick reference. We're using the Crest server here. So it's obviously the URL we're going to use. So I just saved it here as a base URL. You'll see the prototyping here is a little more complex. We're using request to pull the data. So in this case, we are doing, what was this one? This was, we'll close that down. This was inventory types. So crest.get inventory types right here. Okay, and you'll see we use the base URL plus / inventory types, and then we add some pagination in there. Now, what we're actually doing on the update, this is just the API function here to pull from the URL. We actually use the update in the inventory types up here to do it. So I wrote some basic, you know, get by unique ID, some store functions, update function. You can see kind of how these are working. We do whatever the SQL is. We return the data. You know, some of these ones, for example, we update something. So like here, we update an inventory type, and then we also call that self this function down here after we updated to make sure we pull the right data. So there's some chaining going on. Kind of the object-oriented way of doing things. Okay, so how does this work? We go and grab the initial number of pages that it has. So you know, Postman here. Let me show you a Postman. Oops, I think I did that wrong. There we go. Okay, come on. Why is this not going? Oops. There we go. Gosh dang. Okay, Postman, isn't that the... Why is it not? There we go. Weird. My Finder isn't working quite right. Okay, and you can see here, you can kind of go in and look at some of these things. So you can see page 1, right? And it will pull back a bunch of data. Here's the page count. So you'll see if we just grab it directly with just a /, it'll come back and tell us how many pages there are and the total number. So basically it grabs 1,000 per page. So you can see that too. So 1187 divided by 2 is 2 pages, or divided by 1,000, 2 pages. So we grab the total number of pages, and then we go and we do each page at a time, grabbing data. We push all the stuff together, and then we insert. So we basically we check to see if that data is if we already have it. If we already have it, then we update the data. So let's go and we return. So unique by ev-id. So we go and we search our local stuff to see if that ID already exists in our database. If it does exist, then we update. If it doesn't exist, then we store a new one. So you can see how that works. Anyway, basically that gives us this big old long set of data here. I'll show you. Select star from inventory types. Okay, and you see it's a ton of data. I think it's 29,000 rows or something like that. It's a lot of data. Okay, so so you can go to our inventory types here, and we can just search through it, nice and easy. So that's the beauty of the search. So now you know how we got the data, or at least a quick idea of how we got the data. How are we doing all the pagination and all the funny stuff, right? Well, let's go over that. Very first thing we need to do is show the initial component. So we set up with some initial data. We have what page we're currently on, the limit per page, the number of inventory items on each page, and the total number of inventory items. So we can do the math and show pagination, and then whether or not we show pagination. So that's some initial data items that we can go over. Now we're going to watch search. So when this search up here changes, we're going to call the fetch data function, okay, which we'll go over that in a second. The computed properties, which are just properties that are calculated whenever other values change. Like for example, this inventory, whenever this changes, it runs this function and it sets this value here to the return type, return value here. You'll see pagination is a Boolean value, so saying if there is inventory types and they're greater than the limit, then obviously there's pagination because there's more inventory types than the limit. Makes sense, right? There we go. So this will set pagination to true once there's more than that number of items. So and we'll show the show hide here in a minute. The update function, this is where we go and we grab all the new data. So on our Jade, you'll see there is a button here. It says click here, update. That's going to run this function here, which will go to the controller. So inventory types controller here, update, and you'll see that we run the update function. Now I'm not doing anything on return, so all it does is basically run that big crazy function I showed you a minute ago, which takes actually a few minutes because their servers are fast, but it's a lot of data, so it takes a little bit to get all the data in. Anyway, and then we just loop over the data. So with Vue, you can do a nice little vshow here. So we say, okay, if there's any inventory types at all, we're going to show this table body, and then we're going to loop over it. So this is how you do it in Vue. We say vue-for the inventory types. This is matching to, oops, move this over to this guy here, okay, and then we're going to use individual items in each one. So this is sort of like key in, well, I think you're familiar with that. Same sort of thing if you do like the v-for, var key in array. That's what it is. So it runs through as many times as there are items in this array. And then we're just displaying the ID, the name, the ev-id, the market group. I haven't pulled market groups in. That's why you'll see here it's empty. We'll pull that in here in a minute. And then there you go. And because we're not allowing anyone to delete, I'm gonna normally have this delete button. We're removing it right now because we don't really want anyone deleting the stuff at all. And then we see the pagination. Okay, so when this is true, we show the pagination, and then we're telling it how big we want the pagination. And then here's a custom component. Now, how Vue does components is really, really, really cool. So I basically wrote this little pagination thing. So basically, on what page we're on, you know, how many limit, you know, the limit there is, the number, all this sort of stuff. We'll either show the pagination and also show what page we're on. So look at the bottom, see it changes to 4. You see, we go back to page 1, and that left arrow disappears because we're at the last page, right? Pretty cool. And I can also show you what it looks like when there's not enough numbers. So you say like a try. So you see pagination went away because there's not the total number of items is less than the limits, or not greater than the limit, so pagination goes away, right? Okay, there we go. And then also, if there is no items at all, we show no inventory items. So we can put gibberish in here, and it'll show there's no return, so no inventory items. So you'll see the cool part about Vue is Vue is data driven. So you just have to worry about what the data is. That's all you have to worry about. And you set what you want it to do, and then you're good to go. And the complexity level isn't as heavy as like Ember or Angular. It makes it nice and easy to build large apps very, very, very quickly. Okay, so now you understand how the Jade is working and what's going on with the display, how it's handling data. Let's go over the rest of the component. So you'll see on here on the pagination, we grab the parent, which is, because you'll see that this pagination is a component inside this component. So parent is grabbing the component it's attached to. We're calling the change function, and we're taking whatever page it's on and +1 for the next, or -1. So when you click on this one, it takes whatever page this has and add 1 to it, so we get page 2. Right? Good to go. Okay, so you see that function here, change page. We grab the view model. We say, hey, we're loading. And then we assign the new page, because this is the last page +1, so basically it makes this page 2 or 3 or, you know, +1 or -1. Then we fetch data. And fetch data is what we've looked over before. We can grab data from the server. We grab the index, and we grab search, limit, and page. Let's show what that looks like real quick. Inventory types. There we go up here. And we'll say index equals. There we go. Okay, so on the controller, on index, we're passing in the search, the page, and the data. Because remember, this is that object that we passed in. And we're calling this model here, right? Index, search, page, limit. We calculate the offset based on the page and the limit. And we add, if there's any search variables, we add that into the query. I'm not going to go over MySQL because I think that's out of scope because we're talking about Vue.js and Socket Cluster. But if you're curious about SQL stuff, please post below, and I actually have a video series I'm building for SQL that might make this more clear if you're confused what's going on here. Anyway, so we group by the name of the inventory items, and then we just, because with joins sometimes something funny can go by and you can get multiple rows back, so this just forces that you're only ever going to have one row for each name. It basically forces uniqueness in the names. Then we grab the limit and the offset, so that's how we get the pages. It's pagination in SQL. Hope that makes sense. Okay. So then on the return, we set the inventory types and the total that come back, because once again, if you look at the controller, we're doing this index count, which below we just basically grab the total number of inventory items with the searching, and then we return the count value. Okay, and that gives us the way to do the calculation between how many items there are and whether we should show pagination and where in the pagination and that sort of thing. Because searching greatly affects how many come back, the total number. It's complicated. Okay, and because we're using the vue-router, not a normal Vue component, we have this route attribute, and this is run anytime you click the button. So when I come up here and I go over and I hit dashboard, it's going to run the route function inside, all the attributes of the route inside that component. So in here we run inventory types. You see that load? It rebuilds this page again, which means it comes in and it runs this fetch data function. Okay, and then on this callback, when it's passed in, when we're done, we transition. So actually, with the transition, you can actually pass in data in here. So what you could do up here is you could actually do, some get data of some sort, function, and let's just say, obviously this is not the best example, but get data, you can say transition. Wow, I can't next, and then data. And let's just say data var data is equal to, you know, ID 4 name Nick, I don't know, something like that, right? Well, that's going to assign these variables up here. So basically that would assign a new variable up here, ID 4 and name Nick, and then those variables would be available in your Jade, or well, HTML, depending on what you're using, right? in your view. Well, that's a cool way to do stuff, but one of the things I found is in complicated apps, there's not enough that you can do in this data function to handle it. So I prefer to do it inside the model itself, because I tend to call this function like whatever I'm doing in here, I tend to call quite a bit up here. So instead of putting it here and then rewriting it again up here, I just write it once up here, and then I call it from down here. So I lose the ability to pass data in through the transition, but it gives me the ability to recall that function multiple times up here based on changes in the page. So I hope that makes sense. And so actually, one thing you could do too is this fetch data could actually return the data and then pass it in up here. But then when you have, if you call it up here in one of these methods, you know, the update or the change page, then you have to handle that data again, and it just seems cumbersome to me. I'd rather handle the data inside fetch data, and then rather than use the transition.next. So based on what you want to do, you can go ahead and do it either way. If you have any more questions about that, once again, post below, and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. But I hope that clears up kind of how the routes work with vue-router, and what's going on with how this page is built. Because ready runs when the component is finished, but route runs every time the route is run. So that's why if you do it in the ready, after the first time, you're not going to have new data. So you want to do it in the route to reassess all the data in case something's changed. And we'll go over like live updates later on. You can make this super dynamic and super event driven. But anyway, that's kind of a basic component. So I hope that makes a lot of sense with the searching and the pagination, what's going on here. And as you can see, if you were building some sort of app where you had to handle lots of data, lots of dynamic data, having the searching and the pagination with all the data makes it super easy to find what you're looking for. And so later on, we'll actually get into like manufacturing these parts and this sort of stuff. And it's kind of a bit of a wonky example, but I think because of the complexity level, it makes it clear how you can use this in an actual production app, in an actual like a production environment. Okay, so let's actually build the market group page, because obviously we have no data. Let's do that real quick. So the very first thing we need to do is add it to the routes, right? So we already have inventory types, inventory groups. Let's add market groups. So market, and then we need to market groups route. It's authorization true. Let's go into the settings Jade down here. Create the Jade file here. And once again, we can go in and just grab one of these guys, paste it in, and just go through and kind of change how things are going. Oop, it didn't grab this one here. I meant to select without the S. Let's see, what's the structure of a market group? Oh, skip. Oops. Group. Oh. Groups. There we go. Oh, man. There we go. It has an ID, a description, and a name. Okay. So we can take this and do description. Let's actually put that by the E above the ev ID, because that makes more sense to me. So we'll grab this here. Say description. We'll grab the inventory type like this. We'll say market group. There we go. Let's add a new market groups.js file. We need to add that into our home file, our Jade down here. Make sure we include that. market. Oops, did I mess? There you go. Messed that up. We need to include a controller to pull the data from. So market groups controller. I think I messed that up. No, we're good. We need to register that new controller. So we'll do this guy. Groups. There we go. We need the actual. We'll grab this guy here. We'll say groups here. Groups. Okay. Let's go into this model here. Let's see. We need to grab all these guys. See, we're not joining on that. Let's grab this one because this one doesn't have all that joins and stuff. So we'll grab this one here, go to the market groups, and then we'll go down here. There we go. Oop. From market groups like so. Grab all the data up here. Let's just, because this takes a little while to pull the data, so let's do I think I've done it with this one over here already up here, so let's do, yeah, let's do this just because we'll be able to see how it's grabbing the data. Number of pages, is that number of items? This is what I'm doing here. There we go. And then there we go. Okay. Should be good to go. We need to make sure in the Jade up here we have that button, update market groups. Does the market groups JavaScript, is it? Oh, we don't have JavaScript file yet. Let's grab one here. Let's see, we need to do more groups. We'll grab this lowercase with the underscore stuff here. Group, there we go. Okay. I think we're ready to go. Let's test it real quick, make sure nothing breaks. Pull this down. Check our developer tools. Oh, invalid component for market groups. Oh, that's why. Can't uppercase that. Go rebuild the templates. Rebuild, F12 is what it says. We're good. Go in. Oh, I didn't add it to the nav bar. Nav bar. Oh, this is just index.j, right? Yeah. Okay, we'll add that in. Go. Say market groups. And then we'll say gulp. Grab this in. Market groups. No market groups. Let's no errors. Let's try the update button. We'll say go. It should start. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Gain data. Here we go. Okay, should be good if we refresh. And there's the data from the API. Cool. So that means the inventory types should also have a market group name. No! Okay. There's an issue there. Let me think about this for a minute. I thought I wrote a function to handle that. Inventory types is update, remote, no. Could have sworn I wrote a function for that. Well, it's in here maybe. Market types, maybe this is it. Yeah, it's actually market. It's just market types. Hold on a second. Let me pause this. Okay. Okay, I think I found the function here. Let's run this. Hopefully this works. There we go. Hopefully this isn't too boring for you. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna because I think it has quite a bit of pages. I think it has like 20 pages. Maybe not. I'm gonna pause this until it's done. Okay, so we're back. So what this market type does is the market type is a one-to-one on a market group ID and an inventory type ID. So that's why we get that kind of weird relationship. So as you can see, it does replace. It does fill out some of the items here. Let's see. You'll see like the Arbalist Heavy Missile Launcher is a part of the Heavy Launchers group. The Arbalist Rapid Heavy Missile Launcher is part of the Rapid Heavy Missile Launchers group. And there you go. And then you can go into here and see. Let's see, Rapid. And there's the ID right there. So Rapid Heavy Missile Launchers. So there we go. And I think the last thing we need to do is to add the ability to, like, see here, we'll see Rapid. So we need to add this ID here, searching on the market group ID here. That way we can see only market groups that match that. So we can just actually do it this way. There you go. There you go. Only show Rapid Heavy Missile Launchers. So you see, these are all the possible Rapid Heavy Missile Launchers. So and you'll see the blueprints with these types associated with it. Okay, so now you can kind of see how we can pull data from the game. And now we need to figure out how to get these blueprints, what each blueprint has. So for example, this let's see. Oh, we'll just go grab blueprint. You'll see, Eve, it requires certain types of materials here, Mexilon, pyrite, and titanium to produce. So now we just need to have another page, like maybe a manufacture button here, where you can select certain blueprints and then add the data. You'll see where we're going with that. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I know this is kind of a long video. A lot will happen in this video. If you have any questions, please post below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. And if you have any direction you want to go, please let me know. Thanks, guys. I hope this helped illuminate the vue-router a little bit, socket cluster, how to communicate between the client server side, and also how to pull data, API data in and store it into the database. Thanks, guys, and have a good day.